All right, so we've got our map that we've created the BSP for, and now we've done the zoning for, and what we want to do is start to add some functionality to it. So we're going to bring up the Actor Class browser, and the first thing that I'm going to add here is going to be a health charger pickup. So you can see scrolling down, looking at the, again, inheritance hierarchy, and we're going to go down and get the new health charger. And again, we can go into where we want to place it in the map, right-click, add the health charger, and we'll adjust the placement because generally they'll come in a little bit off from where you want them. So we're going to select this guy, move him down. Just going in with the camera to make sure he's right on the surface. That looks pretty good. And if we run it and play the map, you can see we've had a health charger added to the level. We'll hurt ourselves real quick here. So we can actually pick up some health. And as we've all come to expect in Unreal, hurt ourselves, go pick up a health pack, and we're healed. All right, so that's one object that we've added to the map there. And of course, there is a lot more if we want to actually make the map fun to play. So we'll add a shield charger. Again, modify the placement a bit. Held down the shift key that time so the camera moves with the object that we're moving. Go take this guy and rotate it on a 45 because again, I just think it looks a bit cooler that way. Rotate the placement of this object as well. Fine tune it a bit, and this of course is entirely up to your discretion where and how you're going to place those. Next, we'll go ahead and add some adrenaline pickups. And again, what you're looking to do here is add the objects that are make the level fun to play. And this is something that is a little bit more ambiguous as you go about creating a level because there's no good hard fast rule for how you're going to do this. It basically just involves knowing how the objects that you're going to be adding work and the player's going to interact with them and trying to make a level that's fun and balanced. And in the end, that's all about placing and toying with it and revising it and revising it and revising it. So you can see there we've placed 4 of these stamina guys, shield, and the health guy. And what we're going to do is duplicate them, hold down Control and right-click to rotate the whole group, and since the map is symmetrical and mirrored, we can just take and drag them over to the other side and automatically have our placement there. So what I'm going to do now is go start to add some of the little mini health files. And what I'm envisioning happening here is these health files are going to get placed through these hallways, and generally I like to use these to sort of lead the player along the path that I want them to go along. You can see here I'm going to go ahead and place several of them up through the end of this hallway. And we've got ourselves a little line of health files there to lead the player by the nose down the hallway. Now we haven't added any weapons yet, so we're going to start to add weapons to the level. Go ahead and add a new weapon base. And again, you can see that the initial placement of it is a little bit off. So we're going to go ahead and pull him up a bit. I'm going to rotate him sideways. Center him on the platform a little bit better. And go determine what type of weapon this is going to be. And I think we're going to put another assault rifle here. Not enough maps have extra assault rifles, and having 2 assault rifles is pretty cool in my book. And as long as we have assault rifles, we might as well throw some extra assault rifle ammo in the level. So we're going to go ahead and place that near it. I'm going to go ahead and place it up on the walkway so they're not right next to it. We're going to pull them over to the edge just a little bit so they're at least visible. And rotate them a bit just because I like the way they look better that way. Select both these guys. I think they're a little bit small, so I'm going to go ahead and actually make them a bit bigger. By going to the properties editor, look at the draw scale, 1.5 to, I think 1.5 looks about right. Adjust the placement a little bit, and this guy looks a little bit small as well, so I'm going to use the draw scale 3D down in the bottom right to size him up. And so now let's take a look at this guy in game. We've actually, this is a map that added a little bit more in the way of placement, item placement around the level, but you can see we've got our shield charger, adrenaline pickups. We go into this next room where we added the weapon. You see we've got some other adrenaline pickups that I've placed. And again, the whole thought here is that you're going to add enough pickups and power-ups and weapons to make the level fun to play. So now we've got our 2 assault rifles, which again is the ultimate way to play this game in my opinion. Other health chargers. And if we go ahead and go to spectate mode, go ahead, look around a bit. You can see we've added double damage, more weapons around the level, ammo for the weapons, and in general, fleshed out the pickups all around the level and the functionality we're going to want. This is actually pretty much what I'm thinking is going to be the final functionality for the pickups. And granted, there might be revision later on. So again, here in the editor, looking at the final pickup placement that we've had there. And again, as was mentioned, there will be revision later on, especially once we start to add static meshes into the level and revise the look and feel of it, and in particular the gameplay of it. In general, what will end up happening is you'll revise the whole thing as you go, but right now you want to get the basic core gameplay functionality down, and so it's essential that you go in and add all these pickups that you're going to anticipate having. All right, so there's that done. So what we were envisioning happening in this level is that all of these hallways that are leading out and across the level are actually going to be jump pads, because I'm envisioning this whole center area being this crazy, frantic, chaotic mess of people jumping from one area of the map to the other and having firefights through the air. So what we're going to do here is start to add in that jump pad functionality. One of the areas we're going to have that jump pad functionality is out on these pads from this section up to this section here. So there's a lot of very dynamic, frenzied movement going on. So the way that we're going to do that, by going into the actor class browser here, and digging in navigation point and getting a UT jump pad. We'll right click and add that guy there. And the UT jump pad needs a place to jump to, and so it needs a path node. In particular, we're going to add a path node to the level. Make sure he's centered up on that pathway there. And what we're going to do now is go look at the object name. We can see this one's name's path node 0. You need to remember that that one is called path node 0. What we're going to do is go down to the jump pad, and in the force path, it's going to put in path node 0. Once we enter that, it doesn't matter the case, because Unreal is going to keep a database of all of the names, and case is totally unimportant to it. It will automatically fill it in if we enter it wrong, as you saw there. So you can see if we go to view paths that there are no paths between any of these objects that we just placed, the jump pad and the path node. But once we rebuild it, you're going to see that it is built paths to them. And in particular, we've got a yellow line between the jump pad and the path node and a purple line indicating how it's going to jump. That purple line will only show up when we have the jump pad selected. See, if we move it around, it doesn't update that on the fly. Once you move it, you have to rebuild the paths again. If we move that guy, it doesn't update it either. But we'll go ahead and rebuild paths. And if we go ahead and go into the level and play it, you're going to see that we're going to be able to run over there, and there's no indication as to where it is now, but we know where it is. So we'll just run over that area, and once we technically collide with the jump pad, we'll jump up onto that pathway surface. All right, so as we saw, there is no real indication as to where the jump pad is. And again, because the jump pad is just a purely functional object, and once we actually play an engine, this little sprite that we're seeing here goes away. So what we're going to do next is actually add a physical element, or a static mesh in this case, show us where the jump pad is. And we're going to go dig and find a mesh that is used quite a bit for jump pads, actually, this guy. And again, right click and no, not add jump pad. We're going to right click and add a static mesh and move it around a bit, get the placement the way that we want it, go into our top view here and center it right on top of that jump pad that we added. We'll rotate the guy so he sort of indicates the direction that we're going to jump as well. Sort of thing is always helpful to the player. And I'm also going to scale him up a little bit in Y, which is saw me do right down there in the right corner. Make him look a little bit more beefy. Also, you see when I'm moving it, that it was clicking up and down again because grid snap was on. What I did there was turn off grid snap so I can move it without snapping to any grid and place it directly on top of the surface. Sometimes that'll happen when you're working with meshes that aren't made to stack on top of surfaces that well. And so what we've done here is opened up a map that has all of the jump pads that we're anticipating having added in already. And so you can see we have jump pads going from these hallways over to those little alcoves on the opposite side. The jump pads on both of the pathways in the side rooms. Jump pads going from these hallways all the way over to that center pad on the other side. In general, you can see any of these yellow lines in the map are indicating a path for a jump pad. And you can see we've got a pretty intricate network of jump pads going across here, which should make for some fairly hectic gameplay.
Play.
And so I'm going to run around just as a single player for a moment here. And you can see all of our jump pads are placed and work as they should. Go for the secret pit dive. Up to the double damage. And we'll run down here into this room. I gotta make these jump pads work. Jump across the chasm here over to where we got the super shield. Again, just demonstrating this little network of jump pads that we've got across the map. And you can imagine that if there were 7 or 8 bots running around here, or people, that it could be pretty hectic across the middle. But we'll check that out a bit later. All right, so let's take a look at this network of path nodes that we've created and talk a little bit more about what these colored lines mean and what's going on here. As we pull down on top of this, you can see that we've got, in this map, what are actually white, green, blue, and yellow lines. Each of them means something a little bit different. White lines indicate the largest possible path, or the largest width of the path from the side of that line that's being drawn there out. Meaning that if a character is very wide, which is something specified on a per character, per player basis, or perhaps if you have vehicles, then you can go on the white path. Green path is a little bit better, and a blue path means it's somewhat constricted. So you can see there, for example, blue paths going from the path nodes on the floor up to the path nodes in the alcove. Also, you can see here, again, the yellow paths are prescribed or forced paths, I should say, from one object to the other, which we've done for the jump pads. So again, understanding how that color coding works is fairly important. In general, you want to have as many white lines going across your map as possible, as those are the ones that the bots are going to try and favor to make their way around the map. So what we're going to do here is open up, again, another fully finished map done by Epic, and look at some of the path nodes in it. This in particular is a train map, and you can see as we look out over this train, let's turn the train back on here, see as we look out over the train, that there is a pretty extensive network of path nodes for the bot AI to use to get around. And for the most part, they're all white because they're in pretty plain view to each other and don't have much in the way of objects blocking them or occluding them from each other. You can see here as well, we've got some force paths where we have lift entries. Again, the AI uses that to figure out where to enter and get off of lifts. And as we go back out here and look, again, from an overview, very, very extensive network of paths, again, giving the AI as many options as possible to make its way around and respond to other bot AI or players within the map. So let's go ahead and go back to the map that we're building. One of the things you can use to help you in figuring out if you have any problems is the review paths tool. We're not going to have any problems in this one per se, but let's go ahead and go turn our path visibility back on here. Again, you can see the network that we have, and go Tools, Review Paths. This tool is going to tell you if you have any problems. And in particular, we've got one path node which is not reachable from any others. And if we wanted to, we could go fix that. We're not going to worry about that right now. But again, the Review Paths tool, if you're having problems with your bot AI, is a good tool to use. Look at that.
Play.
All right, and what we're going to do now is talk about some of the ways that we can control players not being able to get to portions of the map that we don't want them to get to. In particular, we've got a couple of deep pits here, the 2 side rooms, and this center shaft also. By default, if the player jumps all the way down there, he's going to die. However, the player can, for example, use the shield gun on a long drop, make it all the way to the bottom, and not die, which is not what we want to have happen down there, because the player would have to suicide or wait till another player jumped down there, which obviously is bad. So what we want to do is make so the player dies when they get just past that little central shaft where we've got a jump pad right there. And there are a couple ways we can do that. First of which is that we can specify a value in Z, after which the player goes below, the player is going to die. So we're going to use the measurement tool here, again, by holding Control, Shift, and middle clicking. We're going to do it from the center or the origin line in the map. Turn the grid snap back on, and if we pull down, we can see that if we put it at about 1280, that's far enough below that jump pad that if we kill the player there, it should be fine. So we're going to go to the level info node. And in the level info, we're going to pull up zone info, and kill Z, we're going to specify that that is negative 1280. And you can see there that it's going to pull a red line up that specifies that once the player drops past that, they're going to die. We also changed the type to kill suicide, meaning that the player basically just dies as soon as they go below that. All right, if we go play in the map now.
Play.
And jump off this edge, like the suicidal person we apparently are. You're going to die as soon as you pass that point that we specified. Okay, so that's one way to do it, but in this map we've actually got a couple of different areas we might want to have different heights that the player gets killed at. So we're going to put this guy back at negative 10,000. Again, that's by going View, Level Info, pulling that up. What we're going to do now is create a cube primitive. And move this guy and reshape him so that he's large enough to encompass the entire map. Or I should say the entire region that we want the player to die in if they jump down there. And you can see that we've made it so that it encompasses both of those side rooms and that center shaft right there. And what we're going to do now is go down to the volume or add volume button, and we are going to add a physics volume. And if we go ahead and take the builder brush away and turn on the visibility of volumes, I press the O key to do that, you can see that we've added a large volume in the shape of the brush. Now what we're going to do here is go in and change it to a destructive volume, make it pain-causing, and give it a very, very high damage per second, which is going to kill anything that steps into it. We can also specify the damage type, and so what we're going to do is go to this pull down, and you can see there's a very, very large list here. We are going to go to fell, because obviously the player has fallen to their death. Volumes need to be rebuilt with the BSP build button. So what we're going to do is rebuild all on the level, let it go through. Technically, volumes are somewhat akin to BSP. All right, we're going to close that and play on the map.
Play.
And if we jump off of this side, there we go. Die as soon as we pass that point, which is of course what we want to have happen. All right, so what we're going to look at now is not necessarily having one kill volume here, but we're going to make a couple of them because these side rooms, we might want to have the level where the player actually dies at a little bit higher. So we're going to duplicate these guys a couple times, take the center one and leave it at the same height, but I'm going to take these side guys, select both of them, and use the vertex editing tool to raise the level up. Again, so that as the player jumps off the edge, they don't have to fall quite as far. So that really is the purpose of the volumes as opposed to the kill zone, or the kill Z level. All right, now what we're going to look at is how to specify level properties and or zone properties. So we're going to go View, Level Properties, which is going to bring up the Level Properties window. And in particular here, what we're going to talk about now is how to add fog to your level. So you can see in the zone info, we've gone distance fog true. We're going to specify a distance fog start and end. In this case, it starts at 0 and ends at 2000. And you can see that it's fading out to the distance fog color, which is black. We're going to change that to be, for example, white. And you can see it fading out to a white color. Now, there's a couple things happening here. Once it gets to the end of the distance fog, or 2,000 units away from the player, you can see, very similar to what happens with the zone occluding, that it starts to cut away portions. This is because basically it's going to go out to that color and assume that it doesn't need to show anything else past that because it's completely opaque fog. This is actually primarily used for a performance gain, being that you can only see a certain distance before it cuts out. You can see there can be certain problems with it, namely that you get the Hall of Mirrors effect if you're looking into other zones and having it be occluded by the distance fog. So we're going to talk about just a minute here is how to set that so that you're not getting that Hall of Mirrors and that it looks appropriate. Got our 2 assault rifles again. We'll go to R mode 1 here so that we can see the effect of the distance fog in wireframe. You can see the wireframe past the distance fog end is not being rendered. And also you can see the fog actually having the color effect on the wireframe as well. All right, come back into here. What we actually want to set is not so close of a value, but we want to find a value that works for the whole map. This fog not only is good for performance, but it adds a bit of atmosphere to the level, so aesthetically it makes it look quite a bit nicer. You can see there as we look across that we're still getting a bit of clipping on the far end, and that really is what we want to try and avoid. So we want to set a value that doesn't necessarily go all the way across the map, but is going to avoid as much of that Hall of Mirroring as possible. So it looks like 4,500 is about it. So what we're going to look at now is very similar to what we just talked about, the level info, but we're going to look at a zone info node. So if we go to the actor browser, select a zone info, and add it to an area, that guy got added underneath the surface because of the way we had the grid snap set. So we'll go ahead and grab him and pull him up. So we've added a zone info to this zone right here, and we're going to tell it that it has distance fog as well and give it a different value than what we ended in the level. Basically, the zone info is the exact same properties as the level info that we saw earlier, except it's on a per zone basis. So you can see that we've added green fog to this area, and we've told it it has about a second transition. What's going to happen is when we transition from one area to the next, it's going to fade from one fog color to the next. And technically, we can set any zone property we want to in this next guy. We can make it be a water zone, make it be a kill zone, for example. We're going to rebuild this guy and go check it out in game.
Play.
And you can see here as we come down into this area that it transitions to green fog from the purple that we have set in the rest of the map over the course of time that we specified in the switch property. Again, anytime we transition from that zone to another zone, it's going to take the new zone info properties. And really the way to think about it is the level info properties, or the level properties that you set, are sort of a default zone info property for the entire map. Whereas if you want to overwrite those default ones, you can add a zone info to any given zone and specify whatever properties you want to for that. So in this case, we don't necessarily want to do that with this guy. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that zone info. Also in level properties, we can specify what the game type is. So you'll notice there's a default game type underneath level info. What I'm going to do here is dig down to show you what it actually needs to use for that. I'm going to turn off placeable objects only, go down and expand the info object, and you can see there's quite a bit more options because, again, it's showing us objects which aren't necessarily only placeable. I'm going to go to game info and dig down until we see these games, which have X at the beginning of them. These are scripted objects which define how different types of games work. So, for example, double domination, team deathmatch, assault, and whatnot. So what we're going to show you here, for example, is how to make it into a bombing run game. We're going to type in xgame.x bombing run. That xgame dot is a very important part because it is the package that all of the game types are stored in. So anytime you want to specify, for example, a bombing run game, you'd be xgame.x bombing run, or team deathmatch would be xgame.deathmatch. And you can see now that we're having the interface for the bombing run game being that we've got the score for the two teams up top. We've got the translocator by default. Again, this is all because it's scripted within the X bombing run game class that this is how the game is played. So what we're going to do here, again, that was just for demonstration, we're going to change this to X deathmatch. All right, and that is pretty much our functionally complete level. We've got our item placement, we've got our movement functionality in there, our jump pads and whatnot, we've zoned it, we've added the level properties that we wanted for the fog and whatnot. So what we're looking at now is a bit more revised version of the map. What we've added here is more player starts for the deathmatch to be able to work the way we want it to, and we've added more path nodes to enable bots to navigate it a bit better. And again, there's no hard set rule to how to do this. It's really a matter of sitting and toying with it and figuring out, okay, do the bots have enough in the way of information to be able to move around? Do they have enough white lines, for example, to be able to move around the map and get where they need to and be able to play effectively? And really it's just a matter of toying with it, going, okay, that works, and do I need another path node here? No, adding it, and revising it as you go to create the level that the bots can work with. So we've created this. Now we're going to save it as dm- whatever we want our map name to be so that we can access it from the deathmatch screen, and we're going to go ahead and go play it. We've saved this one as dm temp, cleverly, and we're going to set it so we got 7 bots playing in the level. And if we go in here and watch it, go ahead and start playing. We've got ourselves a good old-fashioned deathmatch level. Bots running around, stuff to shoot, people shooting you. Go ahead and jump across the map here and get a different weapon. And really, I'll just let this thing play for a second. You can see the bots are maneuvering fine, hunting each other down, jumping across, finding the weapons they need to find. They know intrinsically how to use the jump pads. It's one of the things they're coded to do, so as long as you have it set up right, they as well will jump across the map. And spectate here for a little bit. Alright, technically now we have a functionally complete level that plays well but isn't necessarily that pretty. So what we're going to do is dress it up here in a little bit, but first we're going to talk a bit about performance concerns, and also we're going to talk a little bit about triggers and how to work with triggers. Dude, cut that. Well, all right, so now we have a functionally complete level that you can see here. It's not necessarily very pretty, but it works. We're going to go ahead and dress it up later. Next, we're going to talk about performance and triggers.